here's the trailer for Birdman. Joining me now, Alejandro G. Inarritu, the director, and two of the film's stars, Michael Keaton and Edward Norton. I'm pleased to have all of them at this table. Welcome. So here's what you said. Sometimes it's the size of a starling and sometimes the size of a vulture, but we all have a Birdman.
Yeah, I said that, but it's true. I definitely connect with this character in the torturous creative process and the eternal, relentless questioning of your own results and possibilities. I definitely, that's how my inquisitor. I think my dentist, my mom, and everybody's just questioning why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I should do it better. So I have an inquisitor that it's called Torquemada, that no matter what case I present, he sent me to fire all the time. So he's that guy.
Is this the kind of question that you were asking when you decided you can take a break from acting?
Well, to some degree, you know, I was listening to Alejandro earlier talk about it can, if you're not careful, it can sound very pretentious, frankly. But I was somewhat bored, but not bored like I'm above it bored. I was bored with the sound of my own voice. You know, and the practicalities of a career, I think, are that ultimately you are going to repeat yourself, and I'm probably, I need to grow up and accept that, and I have repeated myself, I think, but I think I just wasn't enjoying it myself as much as I had been, and I don't think I was very good. I think I was kind of going on automatic sometimes, and there were things in life I just wanted to get settled first. I'm not very good at doing too many things at one time, so I wanted to kind of clear the field in my life and go, okay, let's start to dial it all back in now. And then at the same time, this wonderful script and director come along.
Did you hesitate, or did you say yes?
Nope, about 7 seconds.
7 seconds. This is the one I've been waiting for.
Well, I had seen his films, and Ed will tell you there just are not that many scripts that are good. There are not that many directors that and I've worked with really good directors, and there are good ones out there. But it's a question of, are you going to get asked? You know, and if you've seen, you know, 30 feet of his films, you may not automatically say yes, but you say, I probably want to be part of this. You know.
Tell us who Regan Thompson is.
He's an actor, and I always kind of stress that a little bit, because sometimes people I've heard in the press have said, he was a superstar, he was known for, and someone said the other day he was a bad actor. I said, he's not a bad actor, he's not a bad actor at all. You know, you don't get to the level which, you know, where he got at being a bad actor. And I also don't like that. I think it's very bush league, especially coming from other actors, when you talk about people being good or bad. I think it can be a very courageous thing to do, try to be an actor. So he is an actor who has fallen on hard times, not only in his career, but in his life, certainly, and extremely insecure, extremely needy. And he decides to mount a play in New York City based on the Raymond Carver short story. Right. What do you think? Yeah. And he, which he loves and has a connection to. And he decides to direct it and star in it, and he plays a couple different characters in it, and in the process has a nervous breakdown.
Enter you.
Your average Sandplex weekend.
Yes.
Mike Schreiner is Mike is an actor who comes sort of swanning in at a late hour to sort of save the play in question. And who is a bit of an anarchist, a bit of a prima donna, a bit of a method actor, and as we come to meet him, understand also kind of more what haunts him, what his insecurities are, and things like that. But I think that it really, you know, Alejandro said to us in the beginning, this is a story about artists and performers, but in much the same way, I think that if you go all the way back to Shakespeare said, you know, life is a player on the stage. You know, I think Alejandro from the get-go said this. If this isn't, there's lots of pleasures in sticking a fork in the movie industry, in artists, and in their pretensions and in their egos. But if underneath all of this this isn't deeply relatable by anybody who's ever had that voice in their head of doubt, of self-questioning, then we haven't gone to the level that this should function at. And I do think, I not only think everyone has their Birdman, I think people have flocks of birds, that go around them. And I think if you walk down the street in New York City in the middle of the day, you see people with their lips moving and a look staring into the middle distance, because they're in the midst of that dialogue with the voice in the head that says, you should have more, you're not doing enough, or you made the wrong choice, or why didn't you say this to him? It's I think it's like endemic to our primate brain that we have those voices.
He's talking to me.
And I think
He's saying you should say this now. No.
Yeah. So I think the notion, the idea of a person in a spiritual, emotional crisis, questioning where they are in their life and trying in a desperate way to recover a positive sense of themselves is something that almost anybody can relate to. And I think we happen to be in the trade that we're in, but I really think everybody can relate to that idea as human beings.
Absolutely. You shot it at the St. James Theater?
Yes. We were lucky enough to have like a tiny 2 weeks space between Barry Manilow. I'm not sure, when I was doing the scouting, I saw Barry Manilow's dressing room when he was finishing, like 17 pair of shoes and all that. It was amazing. And we were in 2 weeks. It was amazing. Yeah, 2 weeks in that shooting in that space.
So your character's haunted by Birdman in part, Did Batman haunt you at all?
No, I don't look at things. I think Batman, I was blessed to get such a thing. And
that's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, if you're whining about that, wow,
That's right. Your friends in Montana don't whine about things like that.
You're saying it's not like being in Liberia right now to get cast as Batman. I get it.
People talk about, when I say it's hard work, it is hard. I acknowledge that it's hard, but hard doesn't mean stop. Hard just means, okay, it's hard, so let's all these actors, let's get on with it. Like Ed was saying, hard. I call hard, going to a coal mine every morning, or going into
going down for taking an hour and a half to get down.
Yeah. Or how about Doctors Without Borders? That's hard. This is not that hard.
No,
but
exactly
But we kind of I like hard, and I think all these actors would say there's not one of them in this movie, and probably really no actor, to tell you the truth, who would say, "Oh no, I don't want to do that." I don't think. I think maybe I'm speaking for myself, but hard is. I like it when my back's against the wall a little bit,
Do you, Edward?
Sure, yeah, but I mean, it's funny because people keep bringing up, but there's the obvious, extremely thinly superficial connection between Birdman and Michael's character in Birdman, and the fact that Michael did a couple rounds in Batman. Emma's been in Spider-Man. I've been in the Hulk. We've, like a lot of us have danced in that kind of construct, but the irony is, to me, Regan, Michael's character is defined and trapped by this one character that he played. If you said to me or Zach or anyone who grew up watching Michael's films, like what are the ones that were definitive for you? Night Shift, Mr. Mom, Beetlejuice, like the ones, to us it was cool that Michael played Batman, not that he was defined by Batman. And I think the notion, to me, what's additionally impressive about Michael's performance in the movie is that he's about as far away from that character as any actor I've met, in the sense of being completely comfortable in his own skin, has a life much bigger than the roles he's played. And I think
the work he does.
Yeah, and I think the portrait is really it's not even so much of an actor or a career, it's really of a person coming unhinged and coming to grips with the fact that everything that's gone wrong in his life may in fact have to do with his own ego and not what other people have done to him. And it's a very much more nuanced character study than I think just this kind of glib comparison people are making to the role.
As an actor, you like this long time, he's famous for these continuous shots.
Yeah.
Is it as an actor, do you like it?
I like the fact that we had to, I think Edward agrees, but I like the fact that I wanted to see if I could pull it off, you know, because it's not just a question of the long takes, it's a question of everything that goes on in that long take. It's and what he wanted to try to do. And you know, you can't, I tell you, there are so many people that need some light shed upon them. The camera operator, Chris, I mean, this was a yeoman's job, and of course Chivo, Emmanuel Lubetsky, what he did when Alejandro and Chivo worked together. The shots, which were extraordinary, never seemed indulgent to me. They seemed, everything served the story, you know. So those long shots did a lot more than you see the first time around. There's a lot going on in those long shots, and I did like to see if I can pull it off. You know, I like that feeling that, you know, you're coming around the bend, you know, and your horse is just holding back and holding back and holding back, and you're coming to the stretch, and is this the time to let him out? You know, to let him out, give him his head, as they say, and let him run, and then going. The good feeling was I'm coming around the corner, I'm going to meet Edward, and I go, okay, I know Edward will hold it up, and then we're going to see Zach, and now Zach's got to do his thing, and you're surrounded by these actors who are all thinking like you, and you think, man, am I glad I'm with these people, and then of course you screw it up. Or somebody's going to.
But you know, it's not. It's people have been asking if it was like doing theater, and it's really not, because you if you mess up, Alejandro loses a few hairs, but other than that, like, you go back and you do it again, and there's no audience.
That's why I'm bald now.
Yeah, I keep saying Alejandro started with short, straight hair, and then he made this movie.
Like an electric shock.
Yeah, I think the truth is that. The truth is, the stakes were still the stakes of a film set. You had the chance to do it again, and that kind of stuff. I agree with Michael that it would have. I'd have been more concerned about it if it felt like it was show-offy, and if Alejandro wasn't rooting that decision to push away convention in terms of the form of the filmmaking. You know, he rooted it so specifically in an emotional reasoning, which was, I want to be inside the head of this character's anxiety. I want to be inside the clench that he feels as he gets closer and closer to this critical moment in his life, and so the form, the form was really an expression of the emotional. Intimacy he wanted to create between the character and the audience, and that becomes very exciting, because then you say, all right, look, there's a really great reason to do this. Now let's like bend ourselves to it, you know.
Nice to have actors who know what you're trying to do.
Yes, I think it was very clear conversations all the time, you know what I mean? I think we were very open. All of us has to be naked, and all of us were walking in the same tightrope, you know what I mean? We were walking in the same, so if they fail, I fail. If I fail, they will fail. Nobody will help us. There is no editing. There is no polishing. I cannot hide any bad scene. It will be impossible. So it's this an endless spaghetti that has to be basically everything tied together. So in a way, I compare this experience as playing in a band. You know, we were playing live. We were exposing all of us. Nobody will be safe, and that creates a very great collaboration, family vibe that normally in films doesn't happen, because it's very fragmented, the experience. And I will never shot the film again as I did before this one. For sure, that changed my whole perception of how I should shoot and what film should be achieved. For me, it's absolutely different. All what I did now, I feel so lazy the way I did things. You know what I mean? I over-abuse editing. You know, it's not needed. I see now, even my film said, why? I mean, it looks a little bit. There's a very artificial order that filmmaking established that now I'm questioning myself why we have been doing that so long. And so over-abused, you know, this fast-paced speed editing that you'd never really feel nothing. And what I learned about this process is what that I admire all the time. All the great directors that I have admired all my life, they always choose like Max Ophuls or Tarkovsky or, you know, I think Sokurov in Russian now. I mean, all those long takes, what contains is reality, is beautifulness that let you get into and transpire in reality, because that's how we live our lives. you wake up, you open your eyes, and you are navigating in a steady calm all day. And the only real time that we really enjoy, that's why we are so addicted to fiction or movies or books, because we fragmented time and space. It's an illusion of mind. It's a mind masturbation. And that's why we say, wow, that's great, cut to New York, cut to that, reading a book, and everything is synthesized. But that is an impossibility of our own life. We are trapped in our own labyrinths, in our own two eyes, and we never cut. And in a way, that brings you to that transpiration of reality that is, I found it beautiful.
The only thing about that is I came away lots of times from things we were doing going, this is such a fantastic way to work. Everything you're saying, I had a similar feeling from an actor's perspective, just like, this is such a liberating way to work. But it takes for granted the idea that every filmmaker team has the virtuosic capability that Alejandro and Emmanuel Lubetsky, the DP, had together. And I don't think, honestly, just anybody can decide to do this because of the things Alejandro's saying. I think it takes people who are at the absolute peak of their own capacities and talents, who have spent a lot of time really thinking about and challenging the form of film, which Alejandro has in all of his films. Chivo is, without a doubt, one of the great cinematographers working in our modern era of the business. And I think that when you watch the film, I think anybody who makes films already, I think, is realizing, like, what a miraculous achievement it is to have actually pulled off a film that does what Alejandro's saying, but doesn't let the dramatic tension drop. It's very, very hard to do that and sustain the dramatic tension, the fluidity,
without the use of devices.
Yeah.
Next time I direct, I'm going to use as much editing as I possibly. I'm going to depend on all that. I'm going to cover myself every way I can cover myself.
It's an insurance. It's an insurance package. It's what these. You talk about the risks, but really the only person taking a risk was him, because the edit. The option to make cuts and massage cuts later is really the insurance package that the director gives himself for late in the process. So the only, in that sense, he was naked. I do want to say I'm the only person who's actually naked in the film, and he was not a director who was, like, willing to do anything his actors would do.
We have to say not about that.
I kept saying, is this one of those things that you'll do it to show me that you would do it too? And he kept saying no.
All right, let's see a clip from the movie. Here it is. Take a look at this. This is where Regan is rehearsing with Mike Shiner. Nice example of what we've been talking about, isn't this? Yeah. Emily Stone plays your daughter, his daughter. Zach Galifianakis plays whom?
The producer, lawyer, and bullshit a little bit.
Were you going against type in casting him?
Yeah, because I met him one time, and I feel that Zach is one of those guys that you want to bring home. He's one of these guys that you love in the first moment. I think he's extraordinarily talented, smart, and I think he has an incredible capacity that he showed. I want to comment something about this scene because it's very funny. One of the challenges was that basically it was a 4-minute dialogue scene that can be very boring, talking heads kind of thing. So, I was trying just with Chivo to find out the way to get around and see how this actor who is being introduced to him, he's waiting desperately, is taking over him, right? Prestige and all of those, his territory, and the other guy is intimidated by this guy. The camera is surrounded, and this guy, like a snake, is just manipulating and then biting and then editing and then writing and then directing him. And he's taking over a scene that he hasn't ever done, but he's already setting the tone that is completely wrong, and it's kind of crazy in that sense, and I enjoyed a lot. But the mirror of the mirror, I will tell you that I don't know if you remember, we were in rehearsing in LA. It was just an empty space that we were trying to figure out the scene out. And suddenly when I was trying to do things and suggesting, okay, well, the camera will be here, so Then Edward said, wait a minute, but why the camera should be there? Don't you think that it will be here? And wait a minute, why did you say? And I said, so I look at him and said, what you are saying? He said, don't you know what you are doing? What? You are directing me. You are doing exactly what these guys do. So it was a mirror in a mirror of a mirror. It was such a funny thing.
But there's tons of that.
That was all Michael.
Yeah. There's tons of that when you see the movie the second time. I mean, everyone says that you see all these things and you see all these. It's interesting. There are things that are symbolic in it and purposely symbolic, I suppose. And then there's things that end up being symbolic. And then there are things that you interpret in a certain way that you go, am I making too much of this or not? And even that works because who's to say if you're it depends on what you're seeing in it. See, things come about and you think it represents something, and to you, to some degree, it probably does. And that's kind of what happens in this movie. That's really in that kind of really cool gray zone that you can't quite put your finger on.
The very difficult thing too was that how to perform for the theater audience and how to perform to the screen. You know what I mean? Because there's two realities of these actors playing an actor inside the play of a film that is about the play. So all those things were very interesting to explore.
And can I say also, when I was talking about some of the other day, and as I was saying it, I thought, oh yeah, boy, am I glad I didn't think of this. Well, I actually did think of it when we were doing it. My character plays the guy who's putting on this play and is directing the play and is acting two characters in the play. And when you're in the scene, you have to think, okay, I'm Regan, but I'm Regan now playing another guy, so I got to think like the actor. But then you have to think like, in the scene, I had to be the director, and I had to watch what was going on as I was acting. You know what I mean?
It's very, what these guys do, I don't know how they do, because I always have said the most contradictory nature of an actor is that in order to be good, they don't have to be themselves. How you do that? How they do that? You know what I mean? You have to perform other person, and that's what is successful. But you have to get down. How you forgot yourself is I don't know. For me, it's magical.
Are you back when people say this is a comeback? Does that mean anything to you?
You know, anything's okay with me. I mean, however you want to interpret it. At first I thought, well, it's not accurate necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and then you start to say, well, wait a minute, and then I think, well, it's okay if it's a comeback, I suppose. It's okay with whatever it is, I'm working on another movie now, and I did a few before this, and I'll go do another one, and I'll mess a couple up, and then I might be good
just
in
do it
one.
For a while and come back.
Yeah, just keep on doing the gig,
Yeah.
People need copy that fits
exactly
between the left and the right header on a thing, and
hey, if it works for me, I'll take it. It's okay.
Seems to be working.
I think much more germane is that these are the kinds of films I think as lovers of movies, as audience, you wait and you wait to see things that are authentically different from what comes around. And it's not to say that entertaining films of a genre type aren't fun, but every time anyone decries sort of like the way that, big budget franchise films are taking over and good films can't get made, I think this is the kind of film that really rebuts that idea because it's entertaining, but it's challenging. It's even challenging the form of film, and I think people are having a very exuberant experience watching it. And for us, the value is not like really what does it do for us. It's the doing of it. Like you get into this to have this kind of experience with this kind of a director, with these kinds of other actors, and it's like there's nothing better than getting to actually work on something like this.
If this would have ended up, and we all looked at it, the audiences and critics and the actors and where it went, and the result was, hey, that was pretty good. That was pretty bull. I swear to God, I would have been totally okay with that.
Everything could have been so wrong. Honestly, because honestly, it was a very experimental thing. Honestly, I was irresponsible in my side. There was a moment that I was becoming Regan Thompson doing the film and said, what I'm doing, this is going to be a disaster. And let me tell you some anecdote that I haven't talked to anybody. 2 weeks before we started shooting, I went here in New York to have a lunch with Mike Nichols, right? The king. So I sit down with Michael. He invited to a restaurant here uptown, a beautiful restaurant, Italian. It was his table. And I talked him a little bit about what I was trying to achieve in a comedy, blah, blah, blah. And we had to tell it was going to be in one take, drums, and, well, this is the cast. He stopped doing, well, he was taking kind of, I think, an olive. He was putting it in the table and said, Alejandro, you are running to disaster. This a comedy in one take. the humor, you have to work with this kind of craft. Now the actors of that. So he began to tell me the recipe, which, by the way, he was right. I mean, I was just in my pants in. Mike Nicholas told me, and you said, you know, I did it once in 1973. I stopped a production 2 weeks. You can do that. You stop now. You are running to the set. I was shitting my pants. Said, I cannot stop. I'm going to start shooting into.
Yeah, he told me a version, but here's
I was panic, and then I went out. I didn't know if to slap him or hug. So I hugged him almost like a father said, "Okay." But I have to say thank you.
But it's too late.
It's too late. But I have to say that he was right because he put me in a state of awareness about things that it made me more conscious of how difficult it was about what I was attempting to do. And I appreciate his comment. He was right.
That'll teach Mike Nichols to have an opinion about comedy. I mean, where Mike Nichols gets off talking about comedy, I have no idea.
Go with that.
But what's the greatest part of all that is, and then he did it. Yeah. And then he said, yeah, I know. I think I'm going to do it anyway. that I love. That I love. You know, the thing I keep saying about everybody's Birdman in their head in this movie, Birdman's not always wrong. Birdman is quite often correct in what he says. You know what I mean? In his opinion of things and what he feeds in your head. It's not always this negative thing. I listen to it and I go, not so wrong about that. You know, sometimes I listen to him and I go, okay, you're a little extreme right now, but
but there's something there.
Yeah, there's something there. Let me take something out of that.
Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Great to see each of you.
Thank you.
Birdman opens in theaters on Friday, October 17th. That's this Friday. Don't miss it. Back in a moment. Stay with us.